Hello everybody, and thank you for joining Smailes Goldie and QuickBooks on the second of our series of webinars looking into the efficiencies that can be gained and how to better use QuickBooks. My name's Peter Deering. I'm a partner at Smailes Goldie. I look after our cloud team, amongst other things. And today I've got along with me Jacob Emmanuel, who's a service delivery manager from QuickBooks. We're going to be having a quick look today at bank rules and cash flow manager. And without further ado, I'll let Jacob show us the product.
Brilliant. Thanks, Pete. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for giving up your time. It's the second of a series of webinars we're doing closely with Smailes Goldie. As Pete mentioned, I work in the service delivery team, and my role is specifically to work alongside Smailes Goldie to make sure all their clients, being you guys, are in the best possible position with QuickBooks. So just to remind of the agenda, as Pete mentioned as well, we're going to be looking at how to create some bank rules today. And we're also going to be looking at the cash flow planner, which we're going to look at in the product as well as in the mobile app as well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask throughout. You can put them in the chat box, or if you haven't used this platform before, you can scroll down just below the screen and we've got some questions in a tab there. There's also some polls which I'll be asking throughout. Feel free to answer the polls as I mention them, because it's really helpful for us just to understand your use of the product. So there is actually a poll there, so if you scroll down just below the screen, have you ever connected your bank feed to QuickBooks, and have you ever created any bank rules before? It's really helpful for us to know. I know some people on here have used QuickBooks before and some haven't as well. So if you have done that, then that's great, and you'll learn a bit more. And if you haven't, then this is a really good opportunity to learn a bit more. Now, as a reminder, you will get a copy of this recording, so don't worry if I absolutely smash through things, but feel free to ask any questions, and we'll try and make it as effective as possible. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create the bank rules. Now, we're going to be doing this in the product. It's not going to be something that you can do in the app as of yet, but let me just bring up my QuickBooks Online. You are no longer going to be able to see our faces, but you'll just be able to see that screen there. So hopefully you can all see that. Okay. Right, okay, so this is my QuickBooks Online license. If you have QuickBooks, then you'll recognize this. And if you haven't, well, this is what it sort of looks like, the dashboard. And we're going to be looking at today an added feature in QuickBooks called bank rules. And now, for those who haven't ever connected their bank feeds, I'm just going to show you here. So on the left-hand side, we've got our navigation menu, and I've got banking on the left-hand side, and I can click banking there. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole information about bank rules, but this is a really great way of getting a real-time view of your business. This is up-to-date information that's going to be coming through due to a piece of legislation called open banking. And it means you only have to reconnect your bank feed every 90 days. It is as secure as it could be. It goes directly through. So in this case, it's HSBC. And it just means that I'm getting through all of my income, all of my expenses, and I can add them to my books. Now, in this particular case, I've got 193 transactions I need to categorize, but I will get to that. Now, the bank rules are something we have in QuickBooks as a way of being able to help you with automatic categorization of regular recurring transactions. Even if they're slightly different each month, by having recurring transactions, you're going to save yourself a lot of time by having the bank rules on here. And I'm just going to point out to you where those are now. So at the top here, we've got banking. We've also got rules. You can access it by also going to on the left-hand side and going banking and going to rules as well. Now, I've got one in there ready, just as an example, but I'm going to show you how to create a new rule today. The idea here is that we want it to be able to be as efficient as possible and save us time, as opposed to having to having to categorize ourselves each and every time we go through our bank feed. So if you want to learn a bit more about bank rules, we're actually going to send you through a step-by-step guide, but you can also click this here and it's going to open up a little community article, which is going to tell you some more information on bank rules, which is really useful. And 1,687 people have liked it. Okay, so we're going to go to new rule at the top. And actually, before I do that, let me show you an example. So looking through this randomized bank feed here, we can see we've got, this is a good one. Okay, so on the 1st of July, I have a motor running expense, as QuickBooks has categorized it, for £13.12. If I'm not mistaken, I should have the exact same one on the well, I have it on the 3rd of June because that will probably be because of a bank holiday, or rather because of a weekend. And I've got one as well on the 1st of May. So I'm seeing this as a monthly recurring transaction. And actually, I know what that is. That's my car tax. So if I go to rules on here, I'm going to create a new rule. Now, in this particular case, I can call it whatever I want. But in this particular case, I'm going to call it DVLA tax. That's my car tax. And I'm able to assign this rule to money in or money out. Now, it is a money out transaction, and I can even choose which bank account. Now, I only have one bank account in this particular case connected, but you can have multiple bank accounts connected. I have an HSBC account, a Monzo account, Amex card. We've got almost every single major bank, challenger bank, and upcoming bank in QuickBooks now. And you are able to have multi-currency on there as well. So you are able to apply this to multiple bank accounts. But in this particular case, this just does apply to my HSBC account. Now, what I'm able to do here is I'm able to set up to 5, we like to call them conditions. So I can, if let's say I did have 5 or 2 in this particular case, I could include any of the following or all of the following. In this particular case, I'm going to choose just one. And again, I can go into as much detail as I want. So description, what the bank text, or what the bank records it as, or even what the amount is. I could go into what it contains, it doesn't contain, is exactly. There's a lot of area to play around with this here. Now, in this particular case, I know it comes up as DVLA, so I'm going to say that if I get a transaction from DVLA, okay, then that will apply. I could do an amount as well if I wanted to, or something like that. So it does depend, because it's usually a bit different each month, but I could put that in there if I want to as well. And then the great bit is I'm able to actually assign it. So in this particular case, I can put it as an expense or a transfer or a check. It is an expense. And I can choose how I want to categorize it. Now, if you're not sure how to categorize your expenses, this is a conversation to have with the team at Smailes Goldie. And I'm actually able to split this into multiple categories if I wanted to as well. So in this particular case, I'm pretty happy with it being motor running expenses. I mean, there's probably a number of things I could categorize it as. And I could even put a payee on here. Now, I do have DVLA set up as a supplier, but if I wanted to add a new one, I could just create add new, and I can just create one on the fly like that. So in this particular case, I'll choose DVLA. So I've created a rule called DVLA tax. It's going to apply to any transactions going out of my bank account. Specifically, I'm going to actually choose just HSBC. I only have one account, so that's why that's done that. And it must include the bank text DVLA. Now, finally, I've got this option here to automatically confirm transaction this rule applies to. Now, I'm going to leave that off for now, just to show you what it looks like in the product. So let's click save. And that rule's saved. It's good to go. I could, if I wanted to, I could make it inactive. I could even copy it and change it up slightly, or I could delete it if I wanted to. If I go to my bank feed now, this is where the rules will start coming into their own. So here we go. I can see that the 1st of July, that DVLA payment, £13.12, and it's come up with that rule symbol. Okay, and again, if I go down further again, there you go, 3rd of June, DVLA, motor running expense, you get the idea. Now, the amount's slightly different on there. If I want to really save myself time, now I wouldn't necessarily do this straight away, but I would, if you get confident and you've got normal recurring transactions, let's say rent or gas or something like that, you're able to go back into your rules. Again, I can go into edit it, and I'm able to click automatically confirm transaction this rule applies to, and I'm going to click save. If I go to my bank feed, you'll notice that those transactions have now gone. And actually, if I go to my reviewed section, they're in there. So I've got here DVLA tax 1st of July. I've got DVLA tax 3rd of June. I've got DVLA tax 1st of May. So it's automatically done that, and I've actually reduced the number of transactions I've got now down to 193 on there. And it is as easy and simple as that. And you can create absolutely multiple bank rules as well. If you have multiple QuickBooks Online licenses, you're able to actually export these rules as an Excel spreadsheet and import them into another license as well, so saving you time. So hopefully you can see some of the real time-saving pieces on there. these rules will add transactions automatically to your books. And this is a real big time saver. If you imagine you've got recurring transactions, you no longer have to go through, there we go, it's now updated to 190 transactions. We no longer have to go through there and add. In this particular case, that's a lot of transactions. I pulled in my bank feed from the 25th of February, so I need to make sure I'm spending as much time doing, sorting my business out and not in my bookkeeping. And this is a really, really great way to do that. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of information into how the bank rules work. It's a very simple concept, and it's something that's going to save you a lot of time moving forward on there. Please let me know if you have any questions at all around the bank rules. You don't have to do it just now as well. If you think of anything a little bit later on, you're able to message me, putting in a question on there as well. Okay, great. So what we're going to look at now is the cash flow planner, the second part of our webinar. Now, this is a brand new piece of functionality, so brand new that I've only had to play around with it a few times. But you'll find the cash flow planner on the left-hand side navigation where it says cash flow. Now, let me get off that. If I click that, that's my cash flow planner. Now, you'll notice here that it is in beta stage. What that means essentially is that it is not completely fully at its fully developed stage yet, and we really do welcome the feedback here in the top right hand corner. Our developers are always looking for feedback from small businesses. They're looking for feedback from accountants. We really want to make this right, and this is a free feature and something that can make a real big difference to your business. So let me tell you a little bit about how the cash flow planner works, and I will also be showing what this looks like in the app on the go as well. Now, cash flow planner is going to give you critical insights into your current and future business performance. So it's an interactive tool that's going to forecast the cash flow. It's going to look at money that's going in and out of your business. And ultimately what it's doing is it's looking at the financial history to try and predict future money in and out. Okay, so what we're able to do is we can add in future money in or out events and see how those certain changes will impact our cash flow. I think that's absolutely at the moment that's huge. And everything we're doing in the cash flow planner is off the book, so it won't impact or change your books at all. I'm a really big fan of stats. Now, 68% of the UK's most dynamic entrepreneurs currently have cash flow concerns. This is up 25% from before COVID-19, so there's no surprise there at all. And at the moment, QuickBooks have done this research. We know that 59% of small businesses are experiencing a significant fall in business turnover. 51% are experiencing supply chain issues. These are just some of the real issues we've encountered, we've seen, and that's why cash flow is such a hot topic at the moment. So we want to be able to assist you through the current crisis. We want to be able to assist you moving forward as you look to gain assets and take out loans and whatever it is as well. So as I mentioned, this is a beta testing. It is available in iOS at the moment. So on iPhone app, it will be available further into other, to Android or the iPad. I think it might be on there already. And we're constantly making significant drive forwards on there. And it is available to all users in QuickBooks. And again, as I mentioned, just go to Cash Flow Planner or Cash Flow on the left-hand side here, and we're good to go. Now, the most important thing I can mention about the Cash Flow Planner is all the information is pulled from bank feeds. Now, you've got to have your bank feed information connected. If I go to my dashboard here, I can see my bank accounts that I've got connected and where that data is being pulled from. The reason it's your bank feed is because we know that information is accurate. It doesn't take into account any cash in hand. The bank feed's accurate and it makes things a lot more simple on there. So to start off, I'm going to make this a tiny bit bigger. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I've got an option here. I'm on money in, money out. I can see this month. Okay, I can see the next 3 months, I can see 6 months, and I can see 12 months as well. Now, obviously, all the thick lines are from that information. Now, as I mentioned to you, I only connect to my bank feed from the 25th of February, so I'm only going to have information from that point, and I can only affect things going forward, so I can't add things in there either. And you'll notice as it starts getting a little bit, you've got this hash cross-hatching on there. This is where it starts becoming into projections as well, which is really, really useful. Okay, so again, this is just going to give me that in a bar chart sort of form. I've also got my cash balance here. And this is, if you prefer more of a graph, I mean, this is pretty obvious to me where things are going. You know, I've got, I'm in sort of in green here, and you can see this is being impacted by almost daily. I can go along here and I can see that, you know, even just simply on the 22nd of April, I was up, you know, £4,521. And then the next day on the 23rd, £10 went out. So I'm on 4,511. That's really, really simple. Just a really easy way to look at it. Like, why, for example, have I had that little rise here? Well, on the 21st of May, I was up 4,162. And then I had, well, a significant amount of money in, £5,766.19. So it's really, really great and easy to look on there. And I can see as, you know, things come out, the money's going to drop, of course. And then this is where we're starting to get into projections now. You can see it says projections. We've got that little bit of dotted line there, and we've got things money in, money out. Again, on this particular day, that's really useful for me. I know that I'm going to be down £3,468, but I've got £10,325 coming in on the 1st September, and that's going to make a huge impact on my cash flow. So just from looking at that, obviously I'm going to know what, you know, when my best times to go, basically. And so I'm just looking at Katie. You've sent a message. How do you hear the webinar? You're on a Mac and you have your volume up to the max, but there's no audio. Hopefully everyone else can hear. Katie, you can't hear what I'm saying, obviously.
I'm about just to type a reply, Jacob. I was just going to say to go out and come back in again and test it on the way back in.
There's a little reconnect button just below the screen as well, so you can press where it says connection troubles. That usually helps. Obviously, I'm, you know, describing the answer, and she's obviously not going to be able to hear me. So hopefully everyone else can hear me on there. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is we're going to go into this data. Now, the first thing that QuickBooks shows me is the overdue transaction. So it says I have 4 overdue transactions, and for a more accurate cash flow picture, update each transaction with a new expected date. So I'm going to go to update here, and I can see these are what I've got overdue. And this is a really powerful tool for me because we can use our judgment to impact our cash flow planning, basically based upon these conversations. So, for example, I've got £100 coming in from Linda Higgs for the 9th of June. Now, obviously, that's over a month ago now, and I have spoken to Linda. And for example, I can say that, well, actually, she's going to pay me that £100, but it's going to come in tomorrow. Okay. And I can click update. Now, that's not actually going to impact my books, but it is going to allow me to you know, have a look at some of my cash flow and start using the insights I have. You know, I know my customers, I know my clients. Again, Roy Fisher, he's actually, you know, he said to me, well, I'm only going to be able to pay £75. You know, can I pay it tomorrow, for example, or let's say Friday? And I can have that coming in and things like that. And that's really, really useful to know. I've got bills in there. You know, a classic example that I see here is, you know, I meant to, I've got a bill due for £1,700 from my landlord, and I haven't actually paid my rent for that month. But I've made an agreement with my landlord that I will pay, you know, both months together, for example. That's not that much. And I'm going to pay it at the end of July. So things like that, I can update that, and that's going to impact my cash flow, and things are a lot more simple on there. I'm going to leave that last one on there, but hopefully you get the idea of why that's so useful. Remember, all these transactions are past their due dates. Cash flow is only looking forward. And it's going to give us the opportunity to edit those transactions. And again, it is non-posting, so it's not going to actually impact our actual books. It's only will impact the cash flow planner on there. And again, as I said, it's quite a powerful tool, and I think it's really, really useful as well. I could even, you know, if I have this invoice here, I'm like, I can't remember what this invoice is for. I click on the reference number, and it's going to take me through and remind myself, yes, this is the £250 invoice that Ivy is going to be paying me for football coaching, for example. So that's really, really useful on there. Now, since we're looking forward, we've got our coming up section here, okay? So, and again, sorry, just to point out, this is everything. I can look at specifically money in, I can look at specifically money out. You'll notice here there is different sort of types. Now, invoices, that is going to be invoices that I put in the system or that I'm recognized through my bank feed. I've got money coming in. a bill, this is money that I'm expecting to go out, recurring transactions. QuickBooks is starting to use machine learning to start to forecast regular transactions or payments coming through our bank feed each month. And that's why it's so critical to have your bank feed up to date and have the information coming in there. If you have multiple bank accounts, this is going to be really useful as well on there. But you'll also notice I have here planned, for example. Okay, so this is something that I've created. It's a transaction that hasn't been posted directly into QuickBooks, but it has been posted specifically for cash flow planning. So I'm able to just go to add transaction. Let's say I know, for example, that I'm likely to have to give another example. I'm likely to have some money coming in at the end of the month. Historically, before February, my client, Mrs. Smith, she owes me £300, or I'm expecting to have a job coming in. I can save that. Okay, and I can see on the 31st of July. Now, if I go to the top here, if I go to the 31st of July, money in, it's now £625. And I can see on here, I've also got £300 coming in from £325 coming in from Mrs. Smith as well, separately on there. So you're really able to go through this. I can create transactions in, I can create transactions out, and it will always appear. So for example, let's say I'm down £6,243, and on the 23rd of August, 6,243. Yeah, I can add that in. On the 23rd of August, I'm going to get paid some money. I'm taking out a loan, for example, and that immediately has changed this. And we can see now on the 23rd of August, £6,243 coming in, and there you got the money in there. I'm on zero. So it's a really, really useful tool as we look to plan, particularly at the moment when things are, difficult and we're not sure about our cash flow. This particular bit, this overdue transactions piece, is absolutely key. It's likely that you're going to have a lot of, invoices outstanding, bills you haven't been able to pay, and we're able to factor that in to the rest of our cash flow planning in the future. Now on here, moving forward, we're able to look into, I believe, a couple of months going forward, nearly 3 months, and you're able to do the same thing in the app as well. So let me show you what it looks like in the app. Okay, so let me get this loaded up for you. Okay, if I want to go to the cash flow planner, I can go to the burger button in the bottom right-hand corner, and I've got the cash flow here. Now, by the way, if you haven't used the app before, we covered this in the last webinar. Please do have a look at Smailes Goldie's YouTube channel. But this is a great piece of software to use. So the cash flow planner, this is exactly the same thing. We can see which accounts we've got linked on here. I can see my projected balances as well. And very simply, I can move this across and I can see what money I've got coming in and out, what my balances are on a much shorter period. Okay, I've even got options to go through here, or I can look at the cash flow balance on there. I've got it. This is a great piece of software. I can go into things as well, which is really useful. What I quite like on here, I believe, is that I can then scroll down, for example, on here, and I can view all of them as well. So I can look at it from a 6-month point of view. I can look at it from a 3-month, a 1 month as well. Money in, money out. It's exactly the same concept as you're using in the product, but we're able to use it on the app as well. And, we can create transactions on the go. Really useful. This is a great tool that, if you're concerned about cash flow, you're planning to take out a loan, or, gain an asset, this is a great conversation to be having with your accountant, with Smailes Goldie, around this as well. So again, I think it's a really useful tool, and it's just going to allow us to be able to get insights into our current and future business performance. Now, again, this is a free edition and everyone has access to it. If you're using the app, you already have it for iOS at the start with iPhone, but moving forward, there'll be more opportunities within the Android, not far behind on there. Okay. Again, hopefully you found that quite useful. It is a brand new piece of software, and please do, as I said before, if we go into the product, please do make sure, if you have any sort of tips or any feedback, please do give us feedback. One piece of feedback that I've actually given the developers myself is that it would be great to have the option to create scenarios. So let's say I want to create scenario A, which is that I'm going to get a loan in for £10,000 in September, the scenario B where I'm not, and that will just allow me to plan my cash flow forward over the next 3 months as well on there. So that's something that is coming, by the way, and they did take my feedback on board with that as well. A few people had it, so I'm told. Cool. So that is the cash flow planner. That is bank rules. Be great to hear if anyone has any questions as well. If you haven't had a chance as well, we've got some polls. I can see here that quite a few people have connected their bank feed. Some of you have connected your bank rules before, and I can see quite a lot of you use Excel to plan your cash flow. Well, I'm a big fan of Excel, but this is a more interactive, on-the-go way of doing it. And obviously, I've got that information. I'm not having to input that information. If I've got my bank feed connected already, it's going to already be in QuickBooks. So I really recommend everyone gives it a go on there as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're just watching that. You don't necessarily need to do specific customers, do you? You could bunch them all together and know that potentially, for instance, you get 4 or 5 customers paying you one particular day. You could plug that in and see holistically without spending much time at all on it.
Exactly, and I like the fact that you can change overdue transactions, or if next month that you've got a deal with your landlord, or you've been given a break or something like that, you can change that and just give yourself an idea of sort of what the cash flow looks like moving forward. It's, particularly in this time, very, very useful tool to use as well. Do we have any? I've got a question from Tracy. Regards to bank rules, if you add a new rule, will it update the items already reviewed? That's a good question.
I don't think it does. I don't think
it does. I was going to say, I think
it's effectively you've already categorized those transactions.
Yes,
it's basically looking at the ones that are uncategorized, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I think what you're able to do, and I'm just thinking, which is why I paused on there. If I go to my bank rules, I could, if I wanted to, and let's say I wanted to, what I could do is I could unreview, I could undo it, and then it would then trigger the new bank rule. So that's what I'm thinking. So yeah, once it's reviewed, it won't, but you are able to, if you wanted to, go back into it and unreview it if you wanted to. Cool. Great question, Tracy. Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any other questions at all? Please don't be shy or afraid to ask any questions. Ultimately, also, if you have any questions after the webinar, you're welcome to send them through to the team at Smailes Goldie as well.
Yeah, just the other quick thing I just obviously would like to point out is the poll at the very bottom about potentially the topics for a next webinar that we do with QuickBooks. We're obviously always looking to provide information that people want. So if you can give us a steer of what potentially you want to find out about, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And the recording is going to be on YouTube. So I think there could be a way, but if you're watching this recorded, you can put it in the comment section below and just let us know some of the topics you'd like to know more about. I put someone here for, obviously, if you're watching this as a recording, we put things like the getting paid quicker with like PayPal or Go Cardless integration. That will go nicely with what we covered last webinar on invoicing on the go. Construction industry scheme. If you're in construction, that's a great new piece of functionality on there. You're actually able to file directly through QuickBooks. We've got mileage tracking and as well. So there's lots of different topics we haven't covered yet. We'd love to know if you'd like to cover in the future on there. But good. Well, if there's no more questions, then please do make sure that you are filling in the polls. Again, as Pete said, if there are any topics you want to know more about, we've already had a couple of people, but the mileage tracking and getting paid quicker. And please let us know if you found the webinar useful as well. That's really, really helpful for us to know moving forward. Everything we're doing is in partnership with Smailes Goldie as we look to make sure you guys are in using QuickBooks in the best way possible.
Brilliant. Well, all it leaves me to say is thank you very much, Jacob, for your time this afternoon. And I think this is a perfect example of why cloud software is so good. The fact that you brought out a new element to the software, the cash flow planner, and it's just there for people. There's no updating your software or buying an upgrade. It's just there for everybody to use. Thank you very much for showing us it.
Brilliant, not to worry. And if you have any questions, please do send them through and we'll be happy to answer them after the recording. Have a great day, everyone. And if you haven't had a chance, please do fill in the polls and see you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.